Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by CoolStuffInc.com, Mana Traders, as well as Twitch subs and Patreon supporters, just like yourself. I'm Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, MTG Nerd Girl.
Hey guys, welcome back.
Reuben Bressler.
Hello. Have a good Thursday.
Oh, it's been a fantastic Thursday. Top 5 all-time Thursdays.
Really?
No, I'm just being silly.
All time.
Oh,
That's
Jesus.
impressive.
Absolutely not.
I was going to say.
I'm just being silly. But no,
Yeah.
Thursday was fine. Thursday was cool. If you missed our pre-show, patrons and subs to this channel get access to all that content early. And we kick it off with our first pick in our giveaway. Get your chance at $50 worth of anything at CoolStuffInc.com by typing !raffle in the chat. But sub first to get 2 chances to win and support your favorite streamer with your suggestions at the end of the show to see who we raid tonight. Thanks to our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day. And yes, it is part of my job to remind you that Command Fest Orlando is happening June 16th through 18th. That is the pre-release weekend of Lord of the Rings, and it's going to be awesome. And the professor is there. We just announced Elena Danner is going to be there. And yeah, we didn't talk about the other Command Fests last week because I'm not in charge of those.
And also, those Command Fests don't pay for the show.
Right. They're not sponsors of the show. I'm sure they're wonderful events, and they're great.
Sure.
Have all the fun at them. But yeah, I'm going to
I don't know.
work at.
Where are the other ones?
They're all over the country. Like Seattle, I think, is doing another one, right?
And in fairness, I don't think that the one that you work at is the important aspect. I think the fact that it's the one that sponsors the show is the important.
It could be both, right? It could be both.
Factor there.
Yeah. But, you know, that's cool. So, yeah, so for those who did curious, there's one in Anaheim, Indianapolis, Baltimore, Alberta, Canada, Edmonton, Alberta. There's one in Frankfurt, Germany, and there's one in London, England, and there's one in France, which I'm not going to screw up the pronunciation of. There's one in Beijing, China, Osaka,
there's
Japan.
One in Twickenham.
Mm-hmm. Twickenham.
That's a good name.
That's a good name.
It's not Piccadilly,
for a city.
but it's up there.
Twickenham.
Yeah, Mexico City or Melbourne. You know,
That's
Sao
what I
Paulo,
do to my
Brazil.
magic cards when I enter my attack step. I Twickenham.
You're Twickenham. I'm Twickenham at you. So yeah, but again, those are awesome events. Check them out if you can. But Command Fest Orlando is helping us keep the lights on, so let's do that. All right. So this week, as of Tuesday, Wizards officially unveiled the entire Aftermath set. Now, had a wonderful show last week where I was called all sorts of names. It was great. You know, because I can't help the corporate simping over here by explaining how it works.
The comment section was wild.
It was wild.
Like, it was, and it wasn't just us. It was every Magic content creator that failed to completely ostracize Wizards had their comment section flooded.
I mean, I saw the Nitpicking Nerds had a comment that someone was berating them for making Magic content after that incident. Like, they should stop and not support Magic content in any way. They should go play a different game. Like, the comments were so far to one side. It was very interesting.
Look, I appreciate the engagement, y'all. Hit that like button. Go down there and tell me all your thoughts about how wrong I am.
Goodness.
It's not the end of the world. I've been called wrong before. But yeah, I mean, and our patrons, God bless you, have been steadfast with us, which we appreciate, and I think is understood based of years of context of us telling them things.
We did get no down votes. I did just notice. We got 0 downvotes.
Again, look.
I don't think you can see them unless you're logged in.
Oh, maybe that's it.
They removed the visible downvotes on YouTube.
Yeah, I'm sure we might have some. I don't know. It's, you know, the point is that I don't regret anything I said or explained. I am not apologizing for anything I said or explained. You know, you may not like how the world works, but I'm going to tell you how it works, even if you get mad at me.
I would like to clarify something.
Yes, ma'am.
So my clarification here is anytime. So we did not condemn Wizards. We were under the impression that, like, when you have property that is not yours, when you do not pay your car bill, large dudes come to collect your car. Right? That is the way the world works. However, I do not condone violence in any way. I do wish that Wizards had found another option. I do believe Wizards when they say they tried to contact this person and could not. So I think the big disconnect here is that a lot of people and I saw this in comments on Twitter, were talking about how they brought bats and how a bunch of things went more violent. Now, if that's the case, then I absolutely do not agree with what happened. But that is not the impression I was given.
Right.
So I don't know. It's got to be somewhere. So there's 3 sides to every story, right? There's both sides, and then there's what actually happened.
There's the truth. I mean, look, if I see some evidence, absolutely. No one wants violence. Like, for me, this is all very corporate crap, basically. And yes, absolutely, they chose the wrong, security firm, Securitas, if you will, even if it was bought the
We wouldn't be talking about it if the name of the company weren't so famous.
And honestly, I wasn't even 100% sure that was the name of the company, because they are the bad guy in Red Dead Redemption. They're, such a prominent feature. It was almost in my head where it was like, oh, they sent the Pinkertons, almost as like a phrase, if that makes sense.
Well, that's what a Pinkerton is. A Pinkerton is a repo man that comes to your house to break your kneecaps.
So in my head, people were getting a worse vision of what it was based on that word, when it was realistically just the same guy who came to repo my mom's car when I was little. She didn't pay the bill.
They're not called the Pinkertons any longer. The Pinkerton Detective Agency was technically bought by Securitas in 1999. They don't come a long time. Doesn't matter. That's how branding works. They've been branded. The branding continues.
It did lead to an interesting discussion, though, of what do we do as content creators when there is such a groundswell of vitriol from nowhere in particular, right? Like, it is a lot of comments, and at a certain point you're like, man, maybe we are
am I the butthole? There's a whole subreddit for it, right? And I want to know, and feel free to call me out as much as you like. That doesn't hurt my feelings. There was something I had teased in the pre-show that we can talk about right now, because Aftermath's not doing well. Let's just put that out there. Aftermath is not doing well in almost any metric that you judge by, whether it's social media, chatter and excitement, or whether it's sales on the side that I can see on the back end, the singles being super dirt cheap. All that stuff ties together because there's 4 problems. There were 4 things that went wrong with Aftermath. Let us count the ways. Problem number 1 was the collector boosters showed a clear duplication problem. Like in actual factual, you're going to get a ton of copies of the exact same cards in these packs that are 15 cards versus the draft ones, which are 5. That was madness. I don't know who thought that was a good idea. That was madness. Mistake number 2 was the damaging early release. It did no favors for the set in any way. It didn't increase excitement. In fact, it killed a lot of the excitement. Mistake number 3 was the questionable use of security. Of all the firms in the world that could do this service for them, wasn't a great look, okay? And so when you add that up with the last mistake, which I think are underwhelming designs, there's some good designs, and we'll talk about a few of them, but most of them I feel have been fairly underwhelming, and we'll get into that. When you put all that together, and particularly the last part of the fact that they sent the Pinkertons and Pinkerton this and Pinkerton that, what you have done is created a feel bad for buying the product. You've put a stink on this product that makes you feel negative when you purchase it. For good or for bad, for right or for wrong, however you want to look at it. I'm just like telling you, in the real world, that whole lather of it's Pinkertons and Shakedown and all this other crap just makes you not feel good about buying the product. So there's no limited, there's no feel good in buying it. There's way too many duplicates for collector boosters. The collector boosters the treatments don't even look anything like the collector booster box, which I thought was super rad. Like, that's all I got. There's huge problems with this set release.
Yeah, I mean, the feel bads of, like I said, a bunch of comments to content creators being like, how could you create content around Magic after this? You have to imagine there's a portion of those commenters who are also buyers who are going to not buy the set because of it. And so, that makes a ton of sense. I personally, being a limited player, attribute a lot of poor sales to it just not being a limited set. So this is only good for people who want singles, and a good portion of those people buy singles. They don't necessarily crack packs. So there is no overlap. You're not getting to dip into both standard playing people who like to open packs and limited players.
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of truth to what you said. I think that there are multiple things coming together to make this, whatever this Aftermath thing is, not a successful product. Another of them, in addition to the 5 that we just talked about, is that it's a brand new kind of product that has never been released in paper before. This is effectively an alchemy release,
right.
A supplemental thing that goes along with the set. However, I sense a tinge of something to Evan's argument, and I want to clarify. So what you said was this is not a successful product. Do you mean this is a bad product?
Well, we're currently in that weird, right? Like it's literally not even released yet. So you know what I'm saying? So do I want to call it super duper? No. Every sign I've seen so far has been not good. Like, has been negative. Sales being slow, singles being low, like excitement being almost nil, if not. And then that whole, because, you know, I'm a marketing guy, all right? I like to, my job is to communicate. And so what I have seen communicated from this product is a negative feeling. And negative feelings are the worst feelings because you can't just say something to get rid of them. You can't just, you know what I mean? You can't just be like, well, just forget that. No, they won't. Like it's on the product now. And you can't just wash it off.
I agree. There's a weird, I mean, the thing about what people will remember from this product is its release followed by the heavies showing up to the house.
Yeah,
like that is, and that's the thing that is most pervasive outside of Magic culture. Even if any of these cards are successful, no one really cares, especially outside of Magic. The thing that you will remember is, you know, the controversy surrounding it. So, you know, we don't remember a ton, but we remember the God Book, for example, and we do, but as Magic people.
Right.
And people outside of Magic might, you know, have heard of the Black Lotus, but they aren't going to hear of much else other than the controversies. So this is it's a pretty bad look. I hesitate to call this a bad product because it is an experiment. And Mark Rosewater's explanation for why this product was released the way it was because it's tough to tell a linear story in one set. It's tough to put the story beats in order in one set. They've tried with like the story spotlight cards when they would number them, you know, back in the day. This was an attempt to show sort of a timeline of events and a little bit of a denouement and a post-credits scene to a major event in the Magic story, which I admire them going for. I think it's a very cool idea. And I hope that the product isn't as unsuccessful as you say.
I think when you do a lot more products than you're used to, you are bound to have some successes and some not. And that's just because people aren't hungry for new products. So you can't have bad products that do well anyway just because they need new cards. Because X number of cards are rotating out. There's only ever 6 sets in Standard, so you need the new cards. And that's just what it is. Whereas now we have so many different products and a huge, like, why do we need these if there's no Standard being played in your local store? Like, there's a lot of things that go into it. And I think once you ramp up and do 3x the quantity of products, then you're more susceptible to the ebbs and flows of products being successful or not.
You and do know this is the last Standard, like, legal product that's going to be created until September. So we got a minute. So, and hopefully in that minute that will coincide with September is a huge push for Standard, because again, at that point, everyone's going to be dying for any sort of, you know, new experiences in Standard, you know, on Arena, for example, where it's played a lot. But let's move on here to some of the cards themselves that we wanted to chitter chat about a little bit. We've all picked just one because it's a very small set, first of all. And the first one I want to talk about here was Nissa, Resurgent Animist. This is a mythic. It's a green and 2 generic mana for a 3/3 legendary creature elf scout with landfall. When a land enters the battlefield under your control, add 1 mana of any color. Then, if this is the second time this ability has resolved, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal an elf or elemental card. Put that card into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Like, I remember the Elementals deck that would flip over many lands and then go find more elementals. And like, this is technically only going to trigger once because it's only the second time it happens. But going to go find stuff and find the exact stuff that you're looking for, that's pretty powerful stuff, you know, on top of a Lotus Cobra type of effect.
Yeah. I mean,
this is exactly what green wants to be doing, going and finding more lands.
Yeah, it's a 3/3 that has Lotus Cobra. So the landfall trigger will trigger every time,
right?
And then if you get a second one off of your, goes pretty good with Risen Reef, for example.
Yep.
Or a Wood Elves, then you get that extra bonus effect. Also harkens back to Omnath. Just some really clever things going on with the rules text as flavor text on this card.
Now, if we want to get into the red zone, we might as well. This is the first and only Despark Planeswalker that we have in the set. And one of mine, let's go ahead and get it up here. One of my issues with the set in particular is that they've taken the most popular, most exciting card type that they have. That's the Planeswalker card type. And then they didn't put Planeswalkers in it. So you say, okay, fine. You didn't take Planeswalkers in it. So you took Planeswalkers, you took their spark away. What does that mean? Does that mean a watermark? Are you serious? There's no mechanics that tie these together. There's no new mechanics in the small set. There's nothing that says these things have been a Planeswalker, whatever that's supposed to mean. They could make it mean whatever they want to mean. But like, I just saw a giant, like, it just looks like any other legendary creature. It's cool that it's Nissa, but like, what does that say that she's desparked other than a watermark? I just don't get it.
Yeah, that's what happens when you lose your Planeswalker spark. You become
boring?
Just a dude now. Like, you're just a guy. You're a very powerful creature, but you are in combat. You attack and block and have power and toughness just like everybody else. You're not a tiny player fighting on the battlefield anymore. You should be thankful that you got a watermark, Nissa and friends. This is what happens, and this is what Mark Rosewater was talking about when the world has changed and the shape of the game has changed. I think that it's cool. I understand the frustration, and I think that there could have been ways for them to have made a desparked ability or
something.
A desparked
keyword.
That doesn't make sense, though.
Thing.
A desparked ability would still make you something special. The thing
Right.
that is special is gone, so you don't get any more special abilities. I mean, that's just the
you still
story
have memories
of
of
the
other
thing.
planes.
Sure, but that doesn't give you special abilities.
Yeah,
But
that's
what if
true.
it did? But what if it did?
What if?
They-
what
Then
if
you would still be a planeswalker.
They
Right,
make
then
it
you'd still
up,
be a
man.
Planeswalker.
You act like
The
there's
special
these
abilities
rules.
makes you a planeswalker.
That's right.
Make up the rules.
We can put like a different type of foil treatment. I think the watermark is perfect, right? I think that makes sense. You get a different type of treatment if you used to have, something. But you don't get to have, like, if they take away your Planeswalker spark, you don't get to keep your Planeswalkerness.
If the whole
Like,
point,
that's-
if the point is to make them not special, that makes them not great. You understand? That makes them not exciting, right?
I'm also going to push back on you saying that Planeswalker is the most exciting card type that they have.
It is.
I think that is an interesting statement, and I don't know that it's not true. I still feel like Planeswalker, like just being a Planeswalker, maybe, but like they've oversaturated Planeswalkers. There's so many
They've
Planeswalkers.
oversaturated legendary creatures.
Sure, that too.
They've gone hog ass
They're
wild.
not exciting anymore.
Right? They've made 1 million of them. So like, this is just million number 1, million number 2. Like,
Sure, let's
And
make
that's
a new.
fine, because they're not a planeswalker anymore. But
Right.
Evan, this gives more room for new planeswalkers to be focused around the storyline. And also, how much sweeter will it be when she gets her spark back? Some Avatar Legend of Korra stuff happening here,
Right.
where you lose your bending, and then you're just like, but why can't she bend something else?
not having at least one planeswalker in Aftermath was a giant mistake. Like
that I can agree with. They could have had
That I
a
think I agree
different
with.
–
planeswalker.
make the Quintaurus, right? The elephant guy, right? He got his
Quintorius,
spark.
Sure.
yeah.
Quintorius, yeah,
He got
let's go.
sparked up.
That would
That
be
I
great.
can agree with. Not having any planeswalkers does seem very, very strange.
Yeah, or new battles. They could have made more sieges. Those are also
Well, the
really
fight
cool.
is over. I think having battles in Aftermath would have been weird.
Maybe.
That I agree.
But I do think that they hinted at the big fundamental change to the physics of the world of Magic the Gathering is that there are way fewer planeswalkers, but now we have these omen paths through the world tree that allow, even if you're not a planeswalker or weren't a planeswalker, you can kind of travel, right? You can move between worlds in a certain way. So you are not stuck on whatever plane you're on. You just have to, buy a plane ticket, which I think
Also,
is fine.
Storyline wise, this is the aftermath. So having things that are still the same as before, like battles or planeswalkers that were always planeswalkers that have always and are still planeswalkers, aren't very aftermath feel. I feel like this is more an ode to the flavor of the story, to wrap things up. It is a supplemental small set, so they don't, there's no limited. We don't need overly exciting cards. And from what I read, a lot of these do seem pretty good and constructed playable. That's exciting for me.
There's a few that definitely look constructed playable. I'm not saying that there aren't, but I'm saying that there's a lot of pizzazz. There's a lot of sizzle that comes with a planeswalker every single set. And every single time, everyone's like, who's the planeswalker? Where are the planeswalkers? Like, for example, they warned us way ahead of time, Lord of the Rings doesn't have them, right? Why do you think they said that, right? Why do you think they are so early? They said, look, we're not making Gandalf a planeswalker. We're not going to have planeswalkers Lord of the Rings, just so y'all know, because it's so important to the hypes of sets. And like, there ain't none. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to Nerd Girl. What is your card?
Well, first, I just want to make a quick note for those of you guys who are listening to this podcast. Twitch just tried to censor someone who said that this is the third block issue, where it's after the climax and it's not very fun, and Twitch tried to censor climax.
I love that.
That was very funny. Sorry.
Because you can't use that word in any other context. I mean, seriously. Go ahead.
All right, so we'll move on to the card I chose from the set, which the second I read it, I knew I hated it. I play Boros Burn in Modern.
Oof.
And Metropolis Reformer, 2 colorless and a white for an Angel Cleric. It's a 2/3 with flying, vigilance. You have hexproof, and whenever it is dealt damage, you gain that much life. So the best case scenario for me is that I'm able to bolt this card, which removes a bolt from my hand and gives them a 6-point swing on top. I don't think I can recover from that. Like, this is just going to absolutely brick me.
Yeah. This card is
Boom.
fairly unreasonable. This is almost as bad as Core Firewalker against a burn-based red deck. Also extremely good against, like those Arclight Phoenix style decks. Flying Vigilance means that you're going to be able to stand in front of whatever 2/2s come your way while still providing a clock of some kind. If you have 2 of these on the board, your opponent is very likely just dead. And if you have 1 of them on the board, you're doing at least a 6-point life swing.
Like, this is the type of card that will make the red players play like 8 red-white lands and 4 ossifications in the sideboard, because they just can't deal with this any other way. They can't deal with it with damage. They got to get it off the board. That's a cheap, easy way of doing it. I've seen, examples of the Core Firewalkers of the world, splashing black for a, Doomblade or whatever type of effect. Right. Anything that will get them around having to deal damage to this. To this creature.
I mean, I have Path to Exile in my board.
There you go.
And a few other things like that. But the fact of the matter is I need to hand them 7.5 cards upstairs. And this is drastically stopping me from doing that.
You need that path. You need that path immediately.
Yeah. Card's very good.
All right, Reuben, what you got?
I've also got a white card, and I chose a card that I really like the story that it's telling here. I chose Deification. Deification is an enchantment for a generic and a white, As it enters the battlefield, you choose a Planeswalker type. Planeswalkers of that chosen type have hexproof, and as long as you control a creature, if damage dealt to a Planeswalker you control of the chosen type would result in all loyalty counters on it being removed, instead all but one of those counters are removed. This harkens back to the classic Urza's Saga Worship.
Oh, yeah.
Which keeps your life total alive as long as you have a creature. And this is telling the story of how Elspeth is becoming revered. I believe that this is in Theros.
Yes.
The head of Elishnorn is at the foot of this statue of Elspeth.
Like the helm or whatever she had.
The helm thing,
Yeah.
the weird, the
triangle.
the two coat hangers that Veggie had on his head for the TikTok. Yeah, what a cool story and a really interesting effect to protect your planeswalkers from getting attacked to death. And killed to death
It's
with
Worship.
Pile-on.
I love Worship. Worship
cool.
was one of the coolest cards. I thought Worship was like just one of the most amazing designs I'd ever seen when I came back to Magic. I was like, oh my God, that's brilliant. And I got to play with Worship a little bit back in with Troll Ascetic, if we want to go all the way back to the old school, y'all. And yeah, Deification is cool. This is a card that like, I don't know if it's necessarily going to get there, but I kind of want it to because I like it. You know what I mean?
I don't care if it gets there.
It
quite
doesn't
honestly.
matter. It's just going to be fun and silly, and I think that's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, give me this on the Planeswalker that can't go away. Good luck. It has hexproof. You can't even target it either.
Yeah, if you have like a good +1, like what's a great +1 on a Planeswalker?
I mean, Archangel Elspeth makes a 1/1 lifelink. Yeah,
Sure.
I'm just thinking in terms of like the ones that are in standard or whatever. But you know,
and a bunch of the +1s also make creatures. So,
Yep.
Create your own worshippers. That sounds culty.
I mean,
I apologize. But,
yeah, but like, there's so many that make like, you know, Arlen the Pax Hope makes green wolves or whatever. Elspeth Resplendent can find a creature.
All of the
you.
Elspeths make creatures.
Jaya makes a creature. Kaito, the new one, makes a creature. The old one makes a creature. You know?
Yeah, dope.
They all do cool, interesting things. And Liliana will still make you mad. So that's okay too.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. All right. So as we're going to move on here out of the first pick to gather the townsfolk, we thank our sponsor, Mana Traders, the best tool to enhance your Magic online experience. Use the code MAGICMIKES for 12% off your next subscription to Mana Traders. Thank you all so much for supporting them so far and us. Y'all have been spreading the word and getting those subscriptions. So enjoy your time on Magic Online. So this week, Hasbro came out with their earnings report, which they do on the old quarterly basis. And they were comparing, in particular, year-over-year stats. So what happened in Q1 2022, this is when Kamigawa came out, Neon Dynasty. And then Q1 2023, this is basically Phyrexia All Will Be One. And their revenue grew 16% year-over-year, with quoted higher than expected performance for Phyrexia, which was a fantastic set. Fourth reprint of the Warhammer 40k Commander decks. Those things,
wow.
The printers are running, y'all. They're still running. Lord of the Rings set had record pre-orders in March. Yep. Let me tell you, the collector packs are the lotteriest of lottery packs Wizards has ever made in their lives. And Magic revenue is expected to decline in Q2 because the sets don't.
Because there's no standard release.
I mean, you know, Lord of the Rings is technically going to be included there, right? In June, so you still have that, okay. And as long as the ring remains unfound, the sales will be so insane. Like, not that they won't be great, you know, once it's found or whatever, but once it's found, that's a different. There's going to be a before the ring and after the ring was found moment. But until that ring is found,
there is in Lord of the Rings as well.
Yeah, and there's still the chance that some kid will open it for Christmas and for his birthday, and it'll go into a shoebox because his mom won't know what it is or whatever.
Yeah, I'll be like,
and
oh,
then
that's
it'll
cool.
go. Yeah, and then forever we will never know, and that is. I'm not a fan. I
assure you, the retailers hope that the ring is not found, even though the ring wants to be found thematically. But, you know, ultimately, one of the long story shorts was that the revenue and the earnings were up, but the profit was down.
Right.
So, you know.
Yeah, stop me if you've heard this one. Revenue was up, but profits were down. How, like, this is the same old song and dance we've heard from these earnings reports since the show started. Like, what is, can they, first of all, is that good? Is that a good thing?
Well,
Like,
some of the things they noted was that the non-Wizards games like Monopoly were declining in Q1, dragging the growth rate between WotC and non-WotC brands. And the decline in non-WotC games was also driven by mass retailers reducing their inventory, which they had gotten a lot of during COVID because board games were selling like crazy during COVID.
I couldn't get a puzzle to save my life.
Couldn't get puzzles, couldn't hardly find the board games, particularly like the really good hobbyist board games. Those were just gone.
Yeah.
So it's important to know, this is a Hasbro number, not a Wizards number. So even though our sales are up, that doesn't necessarily mean the rest of it is. Mm-hmm. But also, an interesting thing to note for these sorts of things, I think, is how much money and effort are they putting into new projects that we don't see the payoff for until later. So, for example, in Q1, what did they invest money on that will potentially be huge payoffs later? Because we maybe just had normal sets, nothing too exciting, and then later we get the One Ring and a bunch of other stuff that they might end up doing. And we had a bunch of big stuff at the end of last year as well. So I imagine that this is something that comes sort of in cycles where it's like, sales and profits are up, and then sales are up and profits are down because we spent a lot of that money to reinvest.
Right. And, as you get weird little things that come out of these phone calls, Chris Cox said the average Magic player plays the game for 5 to 7 years and spends $500 to $1,000 on the game.
A year?
Total? I think it was total. But
really? That's...
Well, again, someone was like, they could have misheard.
The average Magic player has played Magic for 5 to 7 years.
And that range feels a little bit low, given 5 to 7 years of engagement. So that's a question mark.
I don't know if it's the average. I think it's the average Magic player in the span of their Magic playing lifetime, not necessarily at any given moment.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense.
The whole time period. So either way, I thought that's always interesting when we see that weird little peek behind the corporate curtain there.
Yeah.
And what's going on
It doesn't sound like that much money, to be honest.
It doesn't.
I mean...
I think I spent $800 last week.
Right, exactly.
I spent way more than that per year. But that's just because what we're doing, that's what we do here. We keep up with stuff. But speaking of keeping up with stuff, the Pro Tour is coming back. Pro Tour March of the Machine taking place this weekend at MagicCon Minneapolis.
Yeah.
$500,000 in prizes. I do hope they have some amount of viewing area at the Pro Tour. Maybe a seating area.
Haven't heard the last two.
Well, and it's also been a big piece of feedback of people going, we really would like to have the Pro Tour, have some people cheering, for God's sake, would be fantastic. Doesn't need to be a lot of people.
Having people watch the Pro Tour means that they are not buying stuff or entering into events. Like, watching the Pro Tour does not necessarily make you money.
No, it doesn't. I mean, they paid to be there to start with, but...
Standard metagame looks pretty healthy. The most commonly played deck is fewer than 20% of the field. Rakdos mid-range leading the way, followed just behind by a Grixis sort of mid-range, and then like Esper Legends right there behind. Lots of decks played in the field, it looks like, pre-registered. So it should be a pretty fun tournament starting in just 10 and a half hours from now.
Yeah.
I have heard nothing but good things about Standard over the last few weeks, and for the love of Jiminy Christmas, please go play at your local store. I want Standard to live again.
I do. Look, I think one of the things that we've also found here is there is an unbelievable amount of Fable of the Mirror Breaker in these deck lists. Now, they break them up in different ways, so they're not necessarily the same archetype, but the card is the best card from Kamigawa. It's not even close. It's see and play in like Legacy, for God's sake. It's the amount of value that you get out of 3 mana is bananas. Like, because just making the 2 to the makes a treasure, not worth it. Just getting the other part of Cathartic Pyre, not worth it. Getting that thing, getting the little Mirror Breaker guy that you have to wait a whole turn before you get to do something with for 3 mana, not necessarily worth it. I think it's close. But like, when you get all that over 2 or 3 turns and you create this kind of mini game that they have to deal with this creature before you untap, even if it just copies the 2/2 that makes treasures, are they going to ban that card? Is that card bannable? Am I wrong?
don't know if it's bannable. I mean, they just printed it at too good, I guess. Like, it's just too much value. It's just always a 2-for-1.
Like, what red deck would not play that card at this point, right? I mean...
Yeah. I mean, like I just said, the Rakdos mid-range deck is so heavily dependent upon the card filtering and the card ability. And one of the other highly played decks is going to be a Reanimator deck.
Again.
That, you know, the discard outlet's important. So, yeah, I mean, it slices, it dices, it julienne fries, does all the things that you want. So,
I mean, it sort of feels, to a stronger extent, it feels like not the most powerful thing in your deck, but the most powerful thing in your deck, similar to the way that Expressive Iteration was. It was the thing to play that makes it all come together.
Right, because, you know, it wasn't necessarily like, for example, Jace the Mind Scroll that beat you. It was the, what was the blue-white draw gain life spell? Sphinx's Revelation. So
yeah.
you would rev into rev, and that was the game. You didn't know it was over. It was pretty much over. So this helps you get to that point where the game's over. They may not necessarily realize it, but you've crafted your hand. You filtered the cards you don't want. You've got an extra mana. You got a huge threat that they have to deal with and like have to do something about while you're doing your own game. And just, I don't know. I mean, like I see it like it's definitely reached Bone Crusher Giant status where it is in literally every red deck I think that can play it. And I think the question is that okay? You know what I mean? Like, how long is that okay before it's too much?
I think this was stronger than Bone Crusher Giant.
Yeah.
Probably.
I'd argue that.
I think that... I think I'm okay with this card being the best card. Like, it does suck that you kind of have to play this card if you are playing red. And you kind of have to play this card, period, you know, in this meta, in a lot of circumstances. But there are decks that aren't playing red that are, you know, pretty highly played. Like I said, the third most popular deck is Esper Legends. You know, there's a mono white mid-rangey kind of deck that's popular. So it is not, you're not forced to play it like you're forced to play Affinity, for example, or forced to play, you know, the big red artifact deck from when I started playing Magic. But it is ubiquitous to the point of being in probably more than 50% of the decks. Like, I would bet that most of the decks have red in some capacity. The most popularly played card from the newest set is Lithomantic Barrage, which has 364 copies across all sideboards. Zero copies in the main deck,
right,
which
zero
is
main
hilarious.
deck copies. But Chandra Hope's Beacon, I think, is another one that kind of came out of its shell for this event.
Right, because it's a red card that is supporting the game plan that you're already doing with Fable of the Mirror Breaker. The most important thing about Chandra is that it has red pips in its mana cost. So, I get the frustration around Fable of the Mirror Breaker, but I'm okay with it being the best card. Like Evan is fond of saying, something has to be the best.
As long as it's not Epiphany.
Right, and sometimes
as long as
it is,
it's not,
you know,
taking extra turns. As long as it's not Epiphany or Nexus of Fate.
Right, this is where you get into the category of like cards that are not, like we just said, they're not winning you the game, but they kind of won you the game, right? And it's hard to nail down why, but you just keep winning these games that you have Fable where you didn't have Fable.
Yeah, but like, I don't know that Fable into Fable is as game-breaking as 2 copies of Sphinx's Revelation. Like,
thank you.
I've certainly lost those games.
Yeah, I mean, Serial Freak, thank you. That was the percentage I was looking for. I saw earlier. 65% of decks that have Fable at the PT. That's Oko levels.
That's pretty...
That's Oko.
Yeah, that's
levels.
a compelling number to talk about banning. You're not wrong.
Right. Would you rather have Meat Hook Massacre and get Fable out of the format? I'm starting to think I kind of would, to be honest. You know, based on what's...
You're not wrong.
You know, it would kill soldiers, I'm sure, as a deck or whatever. But, you know, again, Fable is a lot. And I just, again, that's what I think I've seen month after month, event after event, you know, just like, damn, Fable is really, really good. Like, is it too good? We do want to give a shout out to Dana Fischer. who fan of the show. We've been on the +1+1, which was great. She unfortunately was not able to make it to Minneapolis. Her appendix ruptured, and they had to have surgery to get it removed. And I do hope they have a quick recovery and Dana get well soon.
Yeah, the post thankfully looks like all green, smiling post-surgery, just resting up. I'm hoping that's where we are, but yeah, Dana will be sorely missed. She's one of the brightest lights at any event that you'll go to.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so send her some warm wishes, and yeah, let's have her get better ASAP.
Yep.
All right, so let's move on here into a little bit of Desperate Ravens. This was a silly kind of story I wanted to touch on just real quick. Gavin Very had a really cool Twitter thread / request thingamabob. Where, he said, just tell a magic story using 2 cards. And, he said, I'll start with Omniscience and Mana Tithe, which, again, can give its own. I, funnily enough, Worship and Delay were my 2 cards because I was playing in an event. This was like a PTQ a million years ago. This is the Troll Aesthetic days. And like my one out was Worship because I had the Troll Aesthetic and I could gain, I could stabilize or whatever. And they had the Delay, and that was it. And do you guys have any 2-card stories to go along with this?
I do. This one happened at a PTQ in Louisville, and I responded to the thread with my choice here as well. I was watching a Pyromancer's Ascension Storm Mirror, and there were no creatures in either deck in the main deck. And then Game 2 happens, and a player casts Telemann Performance. Telemann Performance, if you don't know, is a 3 generic and 2 blue sorcery from Conflux that says that target opponent reveals cards from the top of their library until he or she reveals a creature card. That player puts all non-creature cards revealed in this way into their graveyard. Then you put the creature into play under your control. So, theoretically, 5 mana mill your entire deck. Unfortunately, the opponent had sideboarded in a copy of Phage the Untouchable, which says when it enters the battlefield, if you didn't cast it, you lose the game.
Oh my god. So,
Telemann Performance into Phage was the counter sideboard to the sideboard, which I thought was incredible.
Next level. Nerd Girl, do you have any 2-card stories?
I mostly play limited, so my best 2-card story would be turn 2 of diamonds, river 2 of clubs.
Yeah. I hate it when that happens. That's
my big boat not only got very unlucky to get neither the bad beat, either side of the bad beat, and lost my entire stack with the big boat. It was not good.
Oh, you poker people, I swear.
I'm trying to think that's a really good way to have done this. I wish I'd responded to the thread with 2 of diamonds, 2 of clubs, or something.
You can't be
like
as
that.
cool as me. It's okay.
I can't.
So
we're not as cool as her. This is true.
So I have pocket 3s. Flop is ace 2, 3 of hearts. So I'm just like, okay, well, a little scary, whatever.
Okay.
But turn a 2. I'm like, all right, we're good. It's fine. It's fine.
Full
even
boat,
if they flopped
3s and
it,
2s,
even
right?
if they hit it on the river, it's fine. I got the big boat. Even if they had like ace deuce, still got the big boat. It's fine. River, another 2. And I'm like, okay, well, still fine, right? Still big boat.
Fine.
Yep.
Someone obviously had ace 2.
Sure.
Someone flopped the straight flush.
Oh my god.
Yep, with the 4-5 of hearts.
Whoa.
So because the quads were not pocket pair, we got the baby jackpot instead of the big jackpot, which if we had turned a river the last 3, we would have gotten the big jackpot.
The crazy jackpot, yeah.
Yeah, so my table share, because I was not the winning or the losing hand, did not make up for the amount I lost in the pot with the big boat. Oh, God. Haunts me to this day.
Oh, my God. Wow.
That's the worst. That's a
And
bad
it was far more
beat.
likely that I at least get the 4 or the 3 as opposed to runner 2s. Oh.
Now, we need a nice YouTube commenter who knows exactly what she just said there and everything that meant to be explained
Reuben knows
to
what I
people.
said.
I know Reuben knows.
But the YouTube commenters.
But the YouTube and the Magic players of the world don't always play poker and don't always know what you just said.
Man,
Stupid
having a
running
bad
deuces.
beat hand, that's pretty bad.
Deuce is losing. All right.
Oof.
All right, let's turn here and turn the corner to the finisher. Now, the hockey playoffs are happening as we speak, and Nerd Girl is about to bust out of her seat. We've also got other big sports things like the NBA playoffs, baseball's regular season, and the CSGO Paris Major Challenger stage starts next week. Very excited about that myself. But if this intro goes any longer, Nerd Girl will murder me. So tell me, should we have Magic Mics during hockey playoffs? Why or why not? Show your work. Reuben?
Well, I'm undecided on it. I'm sympathetic to sports fans wishing that they could be watching two things. Hell, I'm watching two things right now. But the other thing I'm watching is one of Evan's old videos, so it's almost like I'm watching nothing at all.
Okay.
That's so mean.
Okay.
Yeah, it is mean.
Okay.
That's a Don Rickles dagger. That's what he did.
This guy, Nerd Girl.
Well, I too am also kind of keeping an eye on the score. I don't have the game on, but I have the Google thing will tell you the score at like live time.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, in period 3, I'm down 2. It's not looking good. So it probably worked out for the best that I'm here. But I would prefer no Magic Mics during hockey playoffs. And I keep my answer brief so I can go catch the tail end of period 3.
Yeah, well, let's go. All right, Evan. Joke. Let's go. Joke. Okay, well. All right, I'll be the bad guy. Not rain, nor sleet, nor dead of night. We'll keep Magic Mics from streaming Thursday night. The only ways we'll cancel our show are due to sickness, emergency travel, Reuben oversleeping, and of course the occasional RC stream invitation. And that,
or if your car breaks down.
Or if your car dies.
That's emergency.
That was pretty horrible. But that ends another live episode of Magic Mics. Thanks for joining us here to discuss all things Magic. Thank you, Nerd Girl.
Thanks for having me. See you guys next week.
All right. Thank you, Reuben.
Thank you. And I am going to draw this out to upset Nerd Girl. No, I'm kidding.
The biggest thing is I really have to pee.
And now she's really got to pee.
Both of them.
All right. So we're going to move on here to our final slide. I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsor, Mana Traders, my co-host, MTG Nerd Girl, and Reuben Bressler. You guys for watching and listening. I hope you support us at patreon.com/magicmics. Please follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe to everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online on our Discord, twitch.tv at Magic Mics, on Twitter at Magic Mics Cast, our Magic Mics subreddit, and like the Magic Mics page on Facebook. Or join us here next week, same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mics. Good night, everybody.